Alright guys, so I'm back. I disabled the secondary webcam. Hopefully that was the issue and it was just causing some conflicts there. I don't know. If not, we'll just keep rolling with the rest of it. It didn't look too bad compared to what I was seeing on my side. So the final recording side didn't look as bad as it was on my side. So like I said, we do have a blown out bearing set. Both bearings on this side are done. I can't see the third until I take it out. These three look good, but we're going to open it up. We're going to see. So typically, when you go to open these up, all you got to do is pull out the screws, and you want to be careful when you actually go to pry the gearbox shell apart. And then another thing I just noticed there is a couple of these screws are really loose. And if these screws end up too loose with the vibration of the gearbox going on, you can actually blow apart your front end if everything is not secured incorrectly. You'll crack it here and here. So these two on both sides will crack. Right now I don't see any damage there at all. So hopefully we caught that before anything else happened. Now with the bearing sets blowing out like that, there is a very good possibility that it took the gear set with it as well, which means you could be replacing not only the gear set, the bearing set, you might even be replacing the piston, because depending on where the teeth went, if the gear set stripped, they could end up into the plastic piston, into the piston head, or anywhere else, and causing, massive issues. So hopefully the bearing set just went, and that's all that went. So there's a trick to opening these up, guys. Let me see if I can find my two favorite things to do this with. So as you can see, I've got a small T-handle, and then I've got, this one's broken, but just a basic little flathead blade. What I like to do is I take the T-handle right into the back of the gearbox, right through the spring guide. And what you're going to do is you're going to apply pressure, you're going to twist this way. So you're going to have torque holding the gearbox shell down. The spring guide, the piston, everything, it's far enough in that it's holding it all together. I do know that the piston is back a little bit, so hopefully this prevents any major damage and helps keep it held together. So we got the top separated. Let's make sure, so the sector gear is sticking. You're going to want to push that back down and in. There we go. So, see, it holds everything in line. When you're done, you can grab, lift, pull out. And it just kind of helps keep everything in position there. Alright, so I don't see any teeth on this side. I do see some, I don't know if that's grease or it looks like actually chunks of BB. Pull up the focus again. Where are we at? Properties. I might as well just leave it open, right? Might as well just leave it open. So let me get this slid over to the side. That way you can see this, and we'll do the focus here. So we'll say right there. Let's find a good sweet spot. So I don't know how well you guys can see these. We'll put it on autofocus. It's not going to let me. Sorry guys, I'm too bright in the light. That ain't going to let it focus automatically, so I'll do it manually. So those two little chunks there on the end of my flat blade tip are actually pieces of BB. There we go. So those two little chunks are pieces of BB, which actually the BB must have broke, it jammed or something. The BB broke and was sucked back into the gearbox. And then when you have BBs being sucked into the gearbox like that, it just causes more havoc and breaks more things just because the BBs are bouncing around. The shards of the BBs are bouncing around in there. So that's where you want to make sure you have good BBs so you don't have anything breaking. Now, I already know the bearing sets are blown out on the other side, so what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much take any and everything out. So just to get you guys a better view of this as well, we should be able to zoom in here. I can focus it any better. That's going to be the best. So best way to get everything taken out is your tappet plate spring here. I'm actually going to set this to auto for now, guys. Sorry. Your tappet plate spring here, you pop it up and off its front pin. From there, you can grab the aerosol nozzle and just in the back of the piston and just pull it straight up and out. Now let's go take a look at the piston here. So the piston looks good. I don't see any stripping on the teeth. A little dirty in there. I don't see nothing else inside, so we're pretty good set there. We don't have to mess with that. Let's take the gear sets out one at a time. So sector gear is a little dirty. Nothing major, it's just all the grease because they like to pack the grease on, but all the teeth are there. You know, everything seems to be fine with that one. Let's check the bevel. So the bevel is a little rounded at the bottom here. And that's more than likely with it just turning without fully touching the spur here. Get rid of the reversal latch. And then here's where, if you guys can see that, you should be able to see that. Let me try and block the light maybe. Do it this side. We're missing a tooth right there. So just to be safe, rather than sorry, I'm going to say new gear set. Because here's all that's left of your bearing. So all that's left of the bearing. That's completely trashed. And then you can see this one here. I actually just pulled it straight out. The inside just came straight out. There's the inner ring. And then all the little balls. So what we need to watch for, guys, too, is, let's see, it's not going to show it just because I'm too bright, guys. I'm sorry. We need to make sure we have all little ball bearings out of the system here. So I'm going to get these set aside. And these things are tiny. Let me see if I can get the show up. And when I say tiny, guys, I do mean tiny. These things are probably, I don't even want to take a guess because they're tiny. You can see it sort of somewhat there. Let me see if I can drop some. Get it focused in. So here's this. Let me focus on that. So there's the end plate. There's the little balls that come out of your bearing set. So those little tiny things will be flying around in your gearbox. And if you don't get them out, you're pretty much going to destroy everything in there. So we're going to take a quick peek. We're going to pull the trigger out. And we're going to just take a look around and make sure that there is nothing else sitting in there that shouldn't be in there. And one of the greatest places to check, guys, is the grease. Because what you're going to hope that happens is the grease catches it before it goes anywhere. So pop the wires up. Take a look. See, here's a strip of metal. I think you guys can see that right there. So that's a strip of metal that came from the bearing set. You know, everything else pretty much looks good here on this side. So we'll tuck the wires back in. The wires tucked back in and down. Now we're going to check the other side. Tuck them in, tuck them in. Let's go check or look at the other side on the grease. So all this extra grease here, we can actually just kind of scrape out because it's just going to be in the way. There's a little bit of overdone quality to the grease here, but you know, typically with your China clones, they pack the grease in. It's not needed as heavily the way they do it, but you know, at least they're greasing it instead of just saying, hey, there's nothing we can do or we're not going to bother. So So there was a couple bearings right there. Let's get the rest of the grease out of that section. And get that chunk out. So we're good to go on this side. It looks like. Alright, so everything else looks good there. I don't see anything floating around. So I think we got that cleared off. Just because we do know there are some little ball bearings floating around, we're going to go check here. And I think I see some more. Grab a new paper towel. Let's go zoom out. Sorry guys, I know we're zoomed in, focused on that. So on the back of the tappet plate, there's some chunks of stuff, and yeah, it looks like, yep, there's where all of our ball bearings went. It's like right here on the towel. So they got caught up and they were rubbing against the tappet plate, causing some wear right there. But I think it was caught soon enough that we got lucky. Nothing floating around inside the piston. Do a quick wipe of the piston head. And nothing between the piston teeth. So the piston should be good to go. Let's pull the cylinder head out and look. Cylinder head looks clean, nothing there. So we'll press that back in. Put the piston back in. Alright guys, so at this point now, we know what is wrong. I need to call the customer. Let them know what's wrong, let them know what needs to be replaced, and then see if they want to replace it, and then give them the price point of what it's going to cost to replace it. As soon as I know what they want to do, I'll be back. If I got to put it back together, you guys will be here for the reassembly. Alright guys, so we are back here. The customer did want to get this one repaired, so we already started the process. You didn't miss much guys, I promise. So basically what I did is I put the new 7mm bearings in. I grabbed the new gear set here, just a standard gear set, nothing special. We're going to transfer the shims over from the stock setup. We're going to see how well the stock shim set actually did. So let me grab a razor here. We're going to see what they did. So here's another part of the, it's not going to focus, but that's another part of the bearing that had broken. Like I said, we do have two broken bearings. The top side actually wasn't bad. It was the bottom side that was actually worn out. So we're definitely going to shim this up a little bit better than it was at stock. So that one's good there. Let's go through this one. Sector, let's see how the sector does. So it needs a little bit more. We got one on the sector here already. So like I said, we're just going to transfer it over. We're going to rebalance the shims. If I need to add any to it, I will. If I do not, I won't. I'll make sure everything is greased and lubricated before it goes back in. That way we don't have any issues there. So check, see if there's any rubbing. No real rubbing. Alright, so we may just need lubrication there. Alright, so the bottom one, that one's good. Make sure that's all pressed in. Throw this up on top. There's my other half of the shell. Losing my mind, guys. Losing my mind. So there's that one. Let's throw this in. No, the gearbox is not together all the way yet. I know. So what we're doing right now is just dry fit. See how well everything is shimmed, and it does look like we need to add some to that to make sure we're good to go. So that's what we're going to do. Oh, shims. Now, what I'm doing right now, guys, I'm grabbing some shims. I've got a drawer full here. We're going to shim this up, and we're going to see how close we can get this to being perfect without going too overboard. That feels a lot better already. Very little minimal play, which we don't want. Ton of play, and then the gear spins freely by itself. So let's go on to the sector. Now this one, I think I want to get up a little bit higher, so let me grab some more shims. I want a thick one, and then I think I want a thin one. So I've already got one on the bottom of the sector, so I don't want to go up any higher than I already have, so let's go right here. So we'll double up on that. We'll see how those two fit together. Now there were two shims on top of the sector. We'll see how tight that is. And then the sector is the one that I like to make sure that we have the least amount of play in up and down, which I have no play up and down now. We got clearance and everything feels good. Let's go see. Cutoff lever is moving. So when I cycle the gears by hand, what I look is to see is if the sector gear is engaging the cutoff lever. That way you will have a functional semi-auto. And it is engaging perfectly at the moment, so that's good. So let's go see. I'm going to take the exact same shim setup because the motor height looked like the motor height was great. There is no wear to the pinion on the motor itself, which is fantastic. So we're gonna try and see how close we can get it to what it was. So it looks like they had it pretty close at the factory, which is fantastic because a lot of times they're way off. So everything's in, things clip together, I squeeze in the middle. We got a little bit of motion there, which is good. That's what I want to see. Then everything spins on its own without any play, which is perfect. So, the bevel I like to leave play a little, just because the motor height there, as it wears in, I want to make sure we have enough flex that when we go to push the motor in all the way, we can push it in far enough that way it engages correctly with all of the teeth. And they look like they had it set up from the factory pretty good, so I don't really want to mess with it any more than it already has been messed with. I threw an extra shim on the bottom just so there's less up and down play. There's still some, but there is now less, which is what I wanted. So what we're going to do is we're going to hand cycle the gears. We're going to get them to our zero position. So for me, I like to have first tooth of the sector about to where the trigger assembly will sit. That way the cutoff, or not the cutoff, I'm sorry, but the cutoff lever is not engaged at all. The teeth aren't hitting the piston at all. And then the gear delayer, the sector clip, is not hitting the tappet plate at all. So it's that neutral position where everything is lined up, that it's not hitting each other too bad at all. Now, everything else was good, grease-wise, lubricant-wise. The only thing I need to get, sorry about that, ICS gear lubricant. Now, what I like to do is I like to manually turn the gears. That way I know with this gear lubricant, it comes out more of a liquid. And then as it sets up, it actually sets up as a grease. It gets a little bit thicker, and it's nice and sticky, which means it works itself into all the teeth and everything else. We'll redo the slides. No, nothing major. Real quick and easy. There's some fresh lubrication. We're going to set everything back up. We're going to turn. drop the whole piston assembly back into its position. Now, I'm not going to go over compression with this. I'm not going to, from what I know, from what I'm told, it shot great from the factory, the way it was set up. So I'm not going to nitpick at this. We're not doing a high performance build. We're just doing a repair it, make it so it shoots again. Repair, which is just bare bones. You know, some new grease, make sure all the old thick stuff's out of there. We got rid of the gear set, so we don't really have to clean the gear set because we got a replacement in there. Hopefully the anti-reversal latch will stay in there. That way I don't have to soak it in white lithium. I have the heavy-duty white lithium grease for the anti-reversal latch, which actually kind of helps keep it in place when you're trying to keep everything in place when you're putting it back together. So good there. Everything's good here. Piston, spring guide. Everything's in place. Springs here. Spring guides in. Now this is where, see, I can hold it down in place. Hopefully that anti-reversal latch doesn't pop up. It probably will. If it does, we can do the grease. So pretty solid. We're going to pop the reversal latch over. We're going to stroke. Now when you do this, typically you got to remember when you're putting these together, the tappet plate is pulling against the sector gear. The anti-reversal latch is going to try and pop out and move on you. And the gears are just going to kind of torque against each other. So what I like to do, and it's already together, guys. Basically, it's already together. The first thing I like to do is I like to push on the airsoft nozzle, which pushes the tappet plate back, which releases stress from the sector gear and lets it drop back in place easy. I like to take a fine blade or a small flathead, pop the anti-reversal latch over to where it needs to be, and then I will take my T-handle, firmly hold the gearbox together, and manually stroke the piston all the way back and forward. What this does is it shows that the piston's not pinched, shows that the tappet plate is not pinched, shows that the anti-reversal latch is not pinched, and then I will manually turn the gears by hand real quick, and everything is turning, which means there is nothing binding at all. And I can start the reassembly process. So it makes it nice if you can verify that everything will turn and move freely before you go to do anything. Because remember, if it's not moving, you hook everything up, hook the battery up to it, pull that trigger, you are going to break something. Whether it is, you know, your gears again, or your piston again, or whatnot. If everything's seized up and you're hammering on that trigger with a light bow on it, you could fry your electrical wires too, because all that heat has to go somewhere. All that energy has to go somewhere, and if it's not going into the motor and into the turning the gears, you know, cycling the gearbox like it should, it generates heat, and then heat just cooks your wires. So it's definitely something you want to make sure everything's going to move freely before you do anything. And then if you're going to do it, if you do it this way, you can double check. When you do reassemble it, you know everything in the gearbox should move and function properly because you already tested it by hand. Which means if you have an issue elsewhere, you know that you don't have to start with the gearbox. You can look elsewhere to see what's going on. Say maybe the motor height's too tight or too loose. It just makes your life a little bit easier to test it all before you even put it back together. And a lot of times, if you're having electrical issues, and I'll show you how I test before I do anything else. What I like to do is if I'm having electrical issues, let me get this last screw in, I'll hook the battery up and I'll hook the motor up just in this position right here, and I'll pull the trigger. If the motor spins and everything feels correct, I know the electrical is good. Now let me go make sure these are all tight. I should be good to go. Everything feels snug. We did a cross pattern when we tightened it down originally, just to kind of help make sure everything tightens down evenly and everything feels like it tightened down perfectly against itself. So we should be good there. So what I like to do is I'll do just motor. It doesn't matter if you get the positive or negative right at this point, or it's not going into the gearbox at all yet. So motor's hooked up. hook up the battery, hold the motor. Hold the motor. I can't stress that enough. Do not, and pull the trigger. This motor is going to torque over, wrap up the wires, and it's going to go flying. Trust me. So hold the motor. So trigger feels good. Nothing's sticking. Nothing is, everything's connecting the way it should be. So you know your electrical system's good as well. So pretty much, we know the gear should turn. We know the motor and the trigger is good. The battery connection's good. We check the aerosol nozzle on the tappet plate. Nothing's bound up there. We check the piston. Nothing's bound up there, and you can double check it again once everything's tightened down. So piston's all the way back freely, all the way forward freely. Gear set. Turns by hand freely. Try to go the other way. It won't go the other way, which means the anti-reversal latch is working. So you pretty much just troubleshoot any issues that you may pop up with. Any issues at all that you can think of that you can cover by that, it just makes your life a little bit easier. So when we're putting this in, we're going to line up our wires on safe. Let's get the trigger assembly triggers lined up first. See how I have it angled, and then you'll work the back down and into place. The first pin you want to put in, no matter what you're doing, the very first pin you want to put in is the one that goes right above the trigger. This is your centering pin. This makes sure everything lines up at the end of the day. And then when you go to put on your pistol grip afterwards, everything will be in place and you won't have to fight with it. The second pin I like to put in is the rear body pin, and it depends on your system. If you have the two-piece hop-up where your hinge is open and you have the tabs, you need to do this. This is one of the last pins you'll do. So you do this one second. Where's my T-handle? It's around here somewhere. There it is. It's in front of my face. So we are good to go there. And then after you have this pin and this pin in this case, these two pins in, do your pistol grip here. If you do the pistol grip first, what is going to happen is you're going to have a hard time getting your trigger pin in, and then you might even have a hard time getting your screw in for the buffer tube, just because everything will be misaligned. That is your main alignment pin. That is what's going to be your bread and butter putting it back together. If you don't do that one first, you will have a field day. Now, one of the other things you want to watch for, and this is going to be based off of the pistol grip. This one looks like it's a little snug inside, but what I try and do with all the pistol grips is I try and tuck. See how the right wire is longer than, the red wire is longer than a negative? What I try and do is I try and tuck the red wire down under and off to the same side as the negative. So they're off on the same side. So when I put the motor in, I want my positive terminal to be on this side, the opposite side that the motor's sitting in. Everything should drop into place, no issue. We're going to do the negative wire first. We're going to take the positive wire up over the motor and over the negative, and then connect the positive. So what you should end up having is, get the negative tucked in. There we go. Your wire should look sort of something like that, where the red wire is coming over top and around. The negative wire, the black wire, is down on its side by itself. What this does is, you can see when I push the motor in and out, it moves freely. It doesn't pinch with the wires. The wires aren't getting in its way, and that means we can adjust the motor height perfectly without the motor sticking. So now we're going to put this plate on. This plate, let's see. That plate, that little disc. This little disc is very important depending on which pistol grip you have. So we need to back off this motor height adjustment because it is in pretty far. What that disc does is that disc acts as a barrier from between that little screw right there in the center. There's a screw. It acts as a barrier between the motor and that screw. If you do not have that disc in there and you got to apply pressure to that screw, that pressure goes right down on the pinion shaft of the motor and applies direct pressure to the motor. Well, this is going to break your motor. You are going to torque your motor out. It's going to heat up. There's a lot of resistance there, and it's just going to fry your motor. So let's get these screws in. Boom. Alright, so we're going to get that one tightened down. We're going to get, I just had the other one right in front of me, losing my mind. I'm going to get that one tightened down. Alright, so at this point, before you go any further, you should hook up your battery. Throw it into semi-auto, not full auto, semi. So we should be able to adjust the motor height. What I like to do motor height is I like to take it in. So right, tighten it in. Go till you start feeling some pressure. Pull the trigger. You hear that whine? That means we need to back it off. So we're going to back it off. Quarter turn. Another, we'll do a half. And then a little bit more. Now I'm too far out. You can hear the difference. So motor height is adjusted. Now you want to start with the motor height in too far because that just means you got a little more force that it needs to turn over. If you have it out too far, if it's out away from if the pinion gear is away from the bevel gear too far, you're going to strip, it's going to spin, it's not going to connect. So you would rather have it up tighter, that way it's snug, and you can just loosen it up a little bit till you get that nice lock in. So basically what you're going to have is you're too tight or too loose. You want to find that just right. And the easiest way to do it without damaging anything else in your system is to start all the way in and then bring it back. So now we're just at the process of reversing. And then another thing you guys want to check, just to double check, and it should work because you tested it already. Remember, you already tested it, is you want to hook it up. Now, you can see the piston cycle, but you also want to watch the air seal nozzle. You can see the air seal nozzle push forward. That means it pushes the VV forward, seals into the hop-up unit, compresses everything, fires, and then resets back to load the next VV. If that's moving the way it should be, just like that, then you're good to go. So, all right, so mag catch. We put in the L piece first. Spring comes in on the opposite side. You take your little nut, or it's probably got a screw as well. You start tightening it down as much as you can. So we got it tight as far as we can. We're going to press in, pull up, and we're going to start tightening it. Now you want to do it to where it's flush. So if you're too far out and it's not flush, it's just going to catch when you got to try and do it. So one more turn should be good to go. We're going to take a little screwdriver, going to line up the nut on the inside here. Get everything centered, and we should be pretty much, maybe one more, maybe, no, let's see. I think we should be good to go there. All right, so now we're going to do our bolt catch. We're going to set the pin, we're going to come through, and like I said, this is where my T-handles come in, and I like my T-handles a lot because I can take the bigger one, tap it in. That's not really going to hurt anything just because it is a T-handle. We're going to take my pin punch, line everything up, and I do the same thing this way with my real steel. So let's go a little bit further. There we go. So everything's in flush. I'm going to do the stock now. There's the stock. Here's your plate. Here's your plate. So we're going to throw the plate on. Plate's on. You didn't see it. So M16 plate is only a half a plate because of the M16. Stock will actually notch in the rest of the way. We're going to get it, wire in, make sure it's lined up all the way through. Long screw right through the back. Now this is where you get tricky. So what I like to do is I like to pull it out a little bit. We're going to make sure the screw goes in, line it up, forward, and you can start threading your thread in. So I've already caught, which means I'm good to go there. I just need to tighten it down. Okay, almost there. Now with these stocks, you need to watch. If you have a cheaper stock or a lower quality stock and you torque this thing down too much, you are going to split the stock right at the seam on top. There's a seam there, you'll split it right through there. If you don't have it tight enough, you'll actually break the stock because it'll be too loose and wobbly. So at this point, all we have to do is throw the front end on. We can test fire the system, and provided everything works, we'll be good to go. So we're going to do front. Make sure your dust cover is closed. Make sure your bolt catch is out of the way. And then the only other thing you need to worry about is back here with your charging handle. You may have to, there's that little tab right here. You may have to pull your charging handle out to get it over that tab and get everything slid back. Make sure everything meshes. So let's see. I know, guys, I'm sorry. It's kind of hard to get this on screen plus do it the way I want. So we're going to weeble it and wobble it until it sits in. Now remember, you never want to force anything because you don't want to break it. There we go. So sat in perfectly. You just had to get it to sit perfect. Take our front body pin. Now our pins. So our main pin, the cap end, the solid cap end, is always on the right hand side of the body. I'm going to press the pin in, pins in, all the way through to the other side. 3mm T-handle. We're going to put our screw base in, and we're good to go, guys. So that is a repair that is done. I will test fire just to make sure everything feeds and everything looks good. We got rid of some of the extra grease in there because they do pack it in and they use the thick stuff, so it should cycle a little bit faster. It should compress a little bit better because it doesn't have as much of the thick grease in there as well. Everything's shimmed a little bit better, so hopefully there's no wobble, no bouncing that will mess with the shim system itself, and we should be good to go. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any input or anything you need to know during a process like this, you know, let me know. Changing a piston is the same process. You would just swap the piston out, put a new piston head on, or even go to a whole new piston head assembly. But this is your full disassemble, swapping of the gear set, new shims, new bearing set, into the whole new everything. And then we got a package here of the old gear set and all the old bearings. So we should be good to go, guys. Like I said, comment down below if this helps you. Give me a thumbs up. If this does not help you, give it a thumbs down. And if you guys could hit that like, subscribe button, it helps us out greatly. You guys have a great day.